couple of cannons, but were not able to hold them because the reserves of the Union forces forced the Confederates back out and back across the fields. The Confederates left that tree line headed this way, and they marched under fire for a good distance of that way by Federal artillery. The artillery stopped so that they could see the object of the attack, the infantry coming, so that their men, the Federal men, could have a better shot. They got to that double fence in front of us. They crossed the first one, and as they crossed the second fence, the Federal infantry opened up on them and just decimated their lines. They just murdered them as fast as they could. Although they did breach the line here, they were unable to keep it. Off to our right, they got a little bit closer, and the North Carolina troops, that's the pink colored stone there in front of those cannons, that's as close as they got to those cannons. We estimate about 15 paces. And those cannons opened up with double-shotted canister, which in essence made them great big shotguns and just completely blew them away. Here we are at Devil's Den. This position was occupied by Confederate forces on the second afternoon. They were using it as a sniper post, and they were shooting at the Union forces up on top of Little Round Top. It's behind us here. Muskets in those days were effective range of about 200 yards. They would kill at 200 yards. A rifle musket were about 800 yards. So that's pretty near max what they had in store for this shot here to be killing anybody up on that hill, and they didn't kill a lot.
This is close-up of Devil's Den. Showing the tunnel inside Devil's Den. The various rocks that you could see concealment beyond.
There's a very famous dead Confederate sharpshooter here at Devil's Den. He was laid right here in front of this rock. You can still see the crevice that was here. Although it was a posed shot, it represented the snipers that they had up here, the sharpshooters that they had hidden in these rocks, in these boulders.
This gives a view of what a Confederate soldier sniping at Union troops would have had from the Devil's Den location. It looks to be about approximately 800 yards across to the top of Little Round Top, within effective range of their muskets.
We're at Spangler Spring. This was the absolute right flank of the Union Army during the entire battle from the second and third day. This spring was used by both Confederate and Union forces as a source of water, mostly for the wounded. But then there was kind of an unofficial truce here, where both were allowed to fill their canteens and go about their way unmolested.
riddled with shot and shell, but remained standing, and was used as a hospital and embalming station after the battle. Services were resumed here after repairs in 1863, but the weakened structure eventually succumbed to a windstorm in 1921, and ready to continue.
Okay.
You should now be parked at stop number 2, at the northern end of the battlefield. Tuesday morning, September 16th. McClellan wasted yet another opportunity to crush the Army of Northern Virginia. 85,000 Union soldiers faced a Confederate army 1/4 that size, but McClellan refused to believe the evidence of his own eyes. His headquarters were on the high ground southeast of here at the Pry House, as shown on the extreme right of your map. Throughout his term as commander of the Army of the Potomac, McClellan relied on the Pinkerton Detective Agency for his military intelligence, intelligence that was consistently inaccurate. The one major piece of information not disclosed in Special Orders 191 was Lee's strength, so McClellan continued to believe Pinkerton's estimate of roughly 100,000. Lee had crossed the Potomac with half that number, and stood on Sharpsburg Ridge until noon on the 16th with no more than 19,000 men, the remainder being en route from Harper's Ferry. Several historians have suggested that McClellan was psychologically disposed to believe he was always outnumbered. In any case, he never used his scouts properly to estimate the enemy's strength. Lee, blessed with a brilliant Stuart, was much better informed. It was not until well after the morning fog cleared that McClellan determined that Lee would stand and fight. The Union commander passed most of the day working out a plan of attack, while Lee waited for his generals, Jackson, McLaws, and Walker. When Jackson and Walker attack across the lower bridge on Lee's right flank, if either wing made progress against the Confederate flanks, McClellan could throw two remaining.
Americans fought back and forth across the cornfield for 3 hours. Those 3 hours may encompass the most concentrated fury in American history. The Union 1st Corps and 12th Corps were fought out. The Confederate side, Jackson's Corps and Hood's divisions were wrecked. The battle moved on. General Hooker described what was left. Every stalk of corn in the northern and greater part of the field was cut as closely as could have been done with a knife, and the slain lay in rows precisely as they had stood in ranks a few moments before. It was never my fortune to witness a more bloody, dismal battlefield.
Behind the car is the Hagerstown Road, and Union forces moved from there towards this ravine. At the time, the area was heavily wooded, and the Confederates opened fire on the Union forces, inflicting more than 2,000 casualties within 20 minutes. This again is a view of the ravine I was just speaking of. This is the ravine the Federal troops entered. The Confederate forces would have been aligned under under Jackson in the tree line. They opened fire on the Federal troops and killed approximately 2,000 men within a space of 20 minutes. Federal troops then retreated back across the Hagerstown Road.